right, so recording to the cloud. So I mentioned this to Neil and Maria, who are on with me today. I've been trying to do stuff with as minimal equipment as we can, just so that people are getting the most out of mobility. But I know that most of you, what I've heard, most people do have a foam roller and or a lacrosse ball or an orb or a tennis ball, things like that. So if you're watching this on recording, go ahead and snag those. But for everyone else, what we're doing is going through this today of some of my favorite go-tos of just like regular use of mobility and fascial type release tools, as far as foam rollers and ball or orbs or lacrosse balls, whatever. And some of my go-tos for it. When it comes to theories about foam rolling or lacrosse balls, there's going to be different doctors and different health professionals with different schools of thought when it comes to why we do them or that they're helpful or not helpful. I feel that when you're using them in a certain way, similar to techniques we do know are proven to work when it comes to using them in pin and stretch type of positions, just like if you'd watched one of the ones last week, we worked on the forearms and wrists. I had you pin and then move stuff around, right? If you can use them in a way that helps to pin or manipulate different tissue, if you use it in ways similar to like how the massage guns do, where it's just kind of cross frictioning an area or going back and forth to get some blood flow and some heat to the area. I don't think that they're necessarily a bad thing, but I also don't think that they solve all your problems. Like a lot of people say, all of their mobility came from foam rolling. Again, you got to add strength, you got to add stability, you got to endurance to everything to actually have true, good, sound mobility. Flexibility is just being able to stretch, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's strong or stable. So I think people just misuse a lot of these terms or overlap them, and that's fine. But I do think that there's some good, easy ways to use the foam rollers and the lacrosse balls in ways of doing some self pin and stretch type mobility for your tissues, getting some blood flow, getting some massage type properties to it, and some ways of using it to actually just hang out in a stretch or in a position that's maybe against the position you were just sitting in all day long. Why not use these tools as a way to open stuff up? It just helps you get in a good position instead of having to find like a couch to go lay over or have to bend backwards over a chair when you can use your foam roller to do it. So I'm just gonna do a couple of my go-tos of things that I will use a foam roller for. And at the end of the day, if it feels good, and it's not doing damage, and that you're going and then doing your activity, doing lifting, doing movement and everything else once you've gained some extra range of motion and tissue extensibility, I think you're not at high risk of doing a lot of damage. Again, if you're just sitting in static stretching for a really long time, or if you're sitting there and rolling and rolling and rolling on something like your IT band, which doesn't actually stretch, the things that stretch or make a fascial difference is the quad and the hamstring on both sides. If you're actually doing it to areas that are making a difference, I think you stand to get some value. If you're doing it in a way that's going to bruise you, or that's just digging in on a bone or on something, then yeah, you might experience problems or people that are against it. It's not all about making it hurt. It's just that certain areas that might be more sore might do well to get some of that flushing of the tissue and the secondary metabolites you have from things being inflamed and sore. Just like if someone was getting a nice massage or you're doing a little bit of an active recovery day, not a bad idea to use these at home when you can't, especially right now, go in to get soft tissue work done. So this is why I'm throwing it in today. There's my spiel to hopefully cover any of the cynics out there about it, or the people that swear by it only and don't do active work with it. It kind of covers both schools of thought, okay? I'm gonna also throw in one more thing. Maria had asked before the recording started about whether or not you're supposed to always roll towards the heart. Don't ever roll on something away from the heart. I'm not doing a ton of rolling. I'm gonna do some moving. We're not doing tons of just roll, roll, roll. But the main reason that they say that is just, again, to think about if you had any sort of swelling or if you had any sort of vascular issues or things like that. They're just trying to not encourage that you're pushing blood flow away and then blocking it by pinning it on the foam roller. But in general, if you're a healthy person doing CrossFit, doing movement and everything like that, your body should have the ability, if you just were to sit and roll on something like this and then pick my arm back off, it should be just fine if I'm a healthy individual with no vascular issue of having blood flow and everything else and lymph return back towards my heart. So no super stress or overthought on that one. Again, if you have other extenuating health conditions or things you're worried about or history of clot or whatever, talk to me later or send messages or talk to your healthcare professional, even better, because then I'm less liable. But you should be fine as far as direction that you're going. Again, I'm going to show you my favorites, and they don't really involve a ton of rolling as is. So there you go for that one. Okay, so I'm going to move this back a little so you guys can see. I feel like I use my small dumbbells more for propping up my phone than I do for lifting right now. Okay. So first things first, this is one that we always do. So we're going to start with it because you guys might have been sitting at work all day or typing or sitting watching Netflix. So we're going to do where we lay over the foam roller. So people all have a different kind of pain that they associate with doing these. Okay, some people do just fine going up and through that mid back. Other people, this is like the most painful thing they've ever done, and they sit and hold their head up and they barely can lean back. What I like to do is start higher up so that I'm a little bit more protected. My neck isn't just hanging out over nowhere. So I start more like right between the shoulder blades. I always support my head with my hands so that my neck, which has been sitting there crocked forward all day, isn't now on blast. And then what I do is a couple different things here. I go in this position, I relax myself down. Some people will do this where they kind of roll back and forth. That's fine. It's just kind of pushing on everything. But again, what I like is more of a pin and stretch and an activation approach. So I drop my hips down to the ground and rest over it. I let my arms fall out to the side. I'm not craning on my neck. I'm just letting it lay back in my arms, okay, and hold into my hands. And then I try to actively engage my rib cage down while I then let my head and arms push back. So I'm actively tucking that rib cage down and then bending, trying to bend back over. So I actually have a bit of a pressure going, a bit of an active contraction, and then I relax. And then I press in again. I still try to breathe, and then I try to really stretch over. And it's really like I'm trying to take that one segment I'm on and bend it right around that foam roller. So go for that one 3 more times. So kind of tucking the rib cage a bit so it's braced. I'm not just letting everything flare and arch. And then I'm really trying to take my shoulders and my head and neck. I'm doing a bit of a retraction in my neck. Like I'm really trying to go back towards the ground and then relax it up. Let's do one more. So tucking the rib cage so it's not flaring a bunch. Tucking the head down, taking the shoulders back, elbows towards the floor, and then relax. Okay, then from that one, give myself a little bit of a break from doing the extension, and I rock towards one of my lats. This one gets spicy. And I rock, and I go kind of side to side. So when I say lats, for those that don't know, I'm going towards my armpits, basically. And I'm just rocking back and forth. So I'm not doing a slide and glide. I don't have my hips up. I'm letting myself be relaxed and over. And everyone's going to have a different kind of set of pressure points along this. But rocking back and forth, sometimes I'll kind of stay on one spot and just rock towards that side kind of together. Notice I take my lower half with me so I'm not over twisting my back. And I'll hang out if I have a spot that's a little bit tender. So right now I'm kind of going up and down a little and then side to side a little, right on that spot. And I'm just letting everything else lay on there. Go ahead and spend a little more time on the other side if you hadn't, or keep going back and forth if that's what's working best for you. So that's hitting a little bit of the lats and a little bit of the posterior shoulder, so the backside of your shoulder a little. That doesn't always get a lot of love, and it's kind of hard to hit with other things. We tend to hit the traps a lot, but we don't always hit those. Then after that, I move it up a little bit. So again, I might have to start with my hips off the ground so I can get kind of breathe through and get comfortable with it. And then again, I drop my back down. I try and press my kind of level that I'm at of my ribs into the foam roller. And then I try to drop my head back. And some of you might even find it's really nice to get a shoulder stretch. Like, I'm not very flexible. So for me, this is like hardcore, nice stretch on my shoulders. But I try to reach and press down, or I protect my neck. If it's too much on your neck to let it go, hold it behind your neck and still reach and press down. And then I come back up a little bit. Again, not craning, I'm not crunching. My butt is relaxed on the floor. And then I push back down. So this is more my mid back. This is more like where like my bra line would be if I was a female that wore a sports bra, or a man that wore a sports bra, or anybody that wore it. Gotta make sure I cover all my bases. But either way, right around that line, if you're someone who's worn like heart rate monitor, right around that strap. Or for those of you that don't know either of those locations, below both of your shoulder blades. and just pressing and just playing around with hanging there, pressing in, coming back up. And then again, I'll do a little bit of side to side roll and hit the bottom part of my lats, because my lats do go all the way down. For the lower ones, you might not be able to roll as far into the side. You might feel your rib cage a little sooner. That's fine, right? So maybe you're only going just a little bit at an angle. And then that one I don't do as many times, it's not as meaty. I do one more where I actually go down and I put my shoulders down first. So now it kind of looks like a hip bridge. So this one is kind of just below what we kind of right at my, what I call my TL junctions, your thoracics and your lumbar come together. It's right above the low curve or small of your back. And I just let myself relax on the ground. My feet are down, if you can see them. And then again from there now, because my shoulders are the ones that are on the ground, my belly button and everything is pretty much at the level, if not just above where the foam roller is, okay? From there, I'm then actually actively pushing, while I keep everything on the ground on my shoulders up, I push my hips towards the ground and then I relax. And then I push my hips towards the ground and then I relax. And you feel a little bit of that kind of stretch and pressure. And it shouldn't be right in the small of your back, right above it, right? If it's painful for you, just hanging here might be fine. You might not need to add that pelvic tilt, and that's okay. But that's what I'll do, is I'll like relax and try to melt over. But now my shoulders are the things that are protecting me on the ground. And my neck's getting to relax a little bit. And I'm just watching Neil and Maria to see what they got going on. Mainly Maria. But Neil's got a nice couch. I'm looking for his dog, actually. And then press through. Okay, now that we're done with that one, carefully come up out of it. Some of you sitting back up might be a problem, so just push it out underneath your bum, right? And that's an easy way to do it. I tend to roll to the side after I've done all that. And now we're gonna hit the kind of glute area that I like to go to. And again, these are just my favorite. There's no like right or wrong on these ones in general. If it works for you, great. As long as you're not causing damage or hurting yourself. But these are the ones that I go to. This is like a rhythm of a mobility session I'd go through with using a foam roller. So then I go and I go to where I'm sitting on my foam roller. So I get up onto it, and then I have more space on one side than the other. So I'm a little bit towards one end. And then I drop my foot down. So it almost looks like I'm doing kind of a butterfly, like I'm sitting, like if I was sitting like this. But one of them, the foot stays planted. The other one, it's falling open. Okay, and then from there, I use my other hand to plant behind the foam roller for support, and I roll until I find kind of a sweet spot, right? So you want to make sure it's an area that's not zinging, it's not sending sharp pain down to your foot, it's not sending zings up or down your spine, and it doesn't feel like you're on your hip bone, right? You don't want to be on that trochanter bony protuberance, but right around that where the muscles attach, you'll find the sore spot. Right? It's likely part of your glute. Okay, so you're going to find that spot. This foot is still planted. You're using your arm to support. You can always hold on. You're going to stay where you're at, and then instead you're going to move that knee up towards the other. And then you can, if that starts to feel like it lets go and isn't sore anymore after a couple, then switch to another spot and move that knee. So this knee stays still, pointing up to the sky, and this one is coming up to meet it. We're getting likely some of your glutes, but also some of your hip rotators, things like your piriformis and stuff like that that go around the back side. We're doing a bit of a pin and active stretch on those. And you might even be able to come down to your elbow and get up in that higher kind of glute, side glute area, and really feel some good spice there. Right? So I like kind of coming down a little bit onto the side. Again, I'm not trying to get on any of my bony prominences that I feel. And then I'm going in and out. Then the other thing that I can do is I can straighten my leg and bend my leg, depending on what you're feeling. In and out, you can lift it up, right? Any of this movement that you can do is pinning and actively kind of moving around and stretching on those different muscles that you're activating. Maria, question. You feeling it?
I just had to say, ow.
Right? These ones can get spicy. Let's go and switch to the other side. Okay, so again, I'll go a little bit more square on for this one. So you can see I'm sitting towards one side, right? I put my hand down to brace, drop this leg. So the other one's planted for stability. And then I kind of roll or tip myself till I find a spicy spot. And then once I find it, I bring my knee up and down. So you can kind of see how I'm keeping this one up. So just showing you a different angle option. Again, getting different hip rotators. Now I don't really feel that spicy spot anymore. So I kind of roll around. So mine on this side is a little bit more towards the back. And I bring it up. Again, I can always try and kind of like straighten the leg out. I might feel it more that way. Everybody's a little bit different. And then I drop my elbow down to get the higher up parts of my glute, right? I might even roll over to the side a little bit and then bring it up. This is the one too that I know if I straighten it down and back up, I feel it. So I kind of play around back and forth. And again, if this is sending zingers, then stop being on that spot. It might be a little too much for you. If this is just way too intense, right? You might need a softer foam roller. You might even find that it rolls out. If you just lay, if you're that sore, if you even just lay on like a hardwood floor and your glute muscle is that tender or sore, you might find even just doing this against a hardwood floor is enough for you, right? Everyone's a little bit different, okay? When it comes to foam rolling the IT band, the infamous IT band, okay? I don't really do that much. I'm gonna be straight with you. I started kind of alluding to this in my spiel at the beginning. The IT band itself is a band. It is not a muscle on its own. The IT band is between your quad, which is the front of your thigh, and your hamstrings, or at least part of those muscles that are on the back side, okay? The one muscle that's part of that IT band is actually kind of up here by the hip, which is your tensor fasciae lata, or TFL, right? Depending on where you're at, they might say it latae or anything like that. But either way, your TFL muscle is actually something that is the muscle that tensions the IT band. It's part of your hip flexor, things like that for hip movement. And that tensions it. So rolling the band itself is kind of like trying to roll out a piece of yarn or string. It doesn't really do much stretching, okay? What it does do when you roll it is it pulls on everything else it's attached to that is stretchy. So instead, what I always recommend to people is rolling through, which I'll show you with an orb, right? Or a crossbow we'll do against a wall after this. But if you are really sore, do feel like you have a lot of tightness there, then I roll through a little bit of my quad and a little bit of my hamstring. But more importantly, what I would rather have you do is just roll up here, which is what tensions it, and then activate that area. Activate your glutes. Do some glute bridges, do some lateral kind of like leg kicks, things like that, stuff that activates those glutes, squats with a band around your knees, stuff that's gonna warm it up and will loosen these things up, will then allow for less pulling on your knees and on your IT band, right? So while it hurts, so in your mind, you're like, it's gotta be doing some good, it hurts, right? It's actually not really functioning quite the same way as what you think. So instead, if you wanted to roll, I'll show you real quick, but we're not gonna spend a lot of time doing it, but you can continue to do this on your own, is I would go off the edge of the foam roller. If you really feel like you're just sore and need to flush through some of this tightness in your quad, I go off the edge of the foam roller so that I can use this knee to not be fully weighted down. Because let's be real, it's tender to lay all the way on. And then I just kind of rolls through, and I'll rock myself kind of onto that hip flexor and TFL a little bit. Again, pinning and stretching. And then I'll rock my way up onto the quad. And I still have, let's see what's easier for you guys to see. I still have that knee down. Let's do it this way. This knee down, holding some of my weight off. And I'll be on that. And then again, I roll kind of side to side. And then I walk my way up. And I roll side to side. So I'm going cross friction to the actual direction of the tissue. And I'm just kind of getting kind of some fascial scrape and disruption just to get stuff moving, bending, grinding, stuff like that. So it's sliding and gliding. And then I go activate it. I go heat it up, okay? So if you want to, that's kind of something I would maybe spend some time doing if you want to do the quads, okay? Totally fine with me. If you want your hamstrings to loosen up, rolling them and just stretching them is not necessarily going to do a whole heck of a lot for you. I would do stuff that activates it, right? And then I would test the stretch and then activate it. So doing, again, hip bridges are great, deadlifts are great, single leg deadlifts and some Jefferson curls to work through your low back. So if your low back's tight, your hamstrings are going to be tight. And then activating them, doing those things, you can watch some other mobility ones that I've put, or you can type in your favorite mobility ones for those body groups. But just stretching or just rolling them is actually not going to do you the service that you think it is. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the ones I do like to roll and spend some time activating, which is your inner thighs. That huge things that are neglected that affect our quads, they affect our hip mobility, and they affect our hamstrings. Okay, so we're going to show you this one as a fun little one I also throw in, especially when I'm really sore after a leg day, or like maybe doing a challenge squat hold or high rep lunges. Just throw that out there because I know we've been doing that in Soto lately and fitness mechanics. So what I do is I put this kind of almost like if I had like a body pillow next to me. I bring my leg over, and so I let it drop here. It'd be easier for you guys to see this way. And then I'm hanging out on my elbows. So this one's a favorite of mine, okay? And then I will play in different spots along my inner thigh. So I'll lay it kind of towards where the knee is, and then I go through internal rotation. So I pick my heel and my ankle towards the ceiling. So what that looks like from this angle, okay, is I'm rolling it inward, okay? I'm not bending my knee back and forth. That is staying at a 90-degree angle, and I'm rolling my hip inward. And it's pretty spicy. And then I roll down a little bit. And then I roll my hip inward again. So hopefully Neil and Maria can see this one, right? I'm going to put it at another angle so you can see it. There's different positions. So I'm rolling in and out into internal rotation. My leg is staying at a 90 degrees-ish through the knee. And I'm just picking it up and off. Some of you might get to like here. You might have hip rotation limitations. That's fine. Okay. But otherwise you're trying to rotate. That's giving you a bit of cross friction while you pin and stretch. Okay. And then I'll roll all the way in to the bigger, meatier part. And then again, I'll rotate. Some of you just hanging out here might be enough. You can also, while you're pinning, straighten and bend your leg. It's a little bit different for what it hits, but again, you're pinning and then moving, right? We're trying to slide and glide some things that might be stuck. We're not trying to do a bunch of bruising damage by rolling around on things that aren't meant to bend. So I'm playing around with it. Okay, let's go ahead and switch sides. Trying to give time to each one that I personally like for Maria and Neil who are on screen. So again, looking straight forward. So you got another angle. So I rotate. So my hips are square-ish. And then I rotate up and down. So play with that one. Again, just hanging out with that foam roller on your inner thigh might be spicy enough. Maria, how's it going for you? See, you're taking a break. Good? Okay. And roll it up that inner thigh. Last spot. Again, if you want to, you can straighten and bend. I can sometimes hit some spots too. An awesome thing to do after you're doing this, for example, would be to like do some banded air squats, maybe some hip bridges and some shin boxes if you've watched some of the other mobility ones, and just do like a set of like 10 of each and call it a mobility session, right? Like ways that you're taking all of these muscles, getting them pinned, stretched, moved, heated, and then you use them, right? That's going to be what gets you that mobility we're talking about, not just a passive stretch and not a reflexive tightening because you just sat and beat them up with a foam roller, okay? So go ahead and we'll put the foam rollers aside. If you have, I normally will use a lacrosse ball, but this is what I have available to me down here. So I think my dog stole my lacrosse ball. No kidding. But if you have a lacrosse ball, a baseball, a tennis ball is going to be soft, but you can push a little harder if you need to. Something a little bit more firm that doesn't have squish. So a racquetball would not work. A dog toy that's squishy wouldn't really work. You want something that's solid, right? That you can pin. And we're going to do a last couple things that I like that are my favorite go-tos for having an orb or a lacrosse ball available. So we're going to start out with hitting that TFL spot I mentioned, because it's a great spot to hit, our pec area, and then our trap area for kind of trap, levator, scap. Those are the 3 spots that I'll regularly tell people to like take when they go on like vacations or travel or on a plane or a road trip. They're awesome because those are kind of some corners that get bound up when we're sitting and traveling a lot. And we're sitting a lot at home right now, so I'm throwing them out there, okay? So grab that guy and you're gonna go to a wall. So, we'll see what you guys can see for stuff I'm doing. Oh, no. You guys are getting dizzy, probably. Okay. Maria and Neil, can you guys see that okay? Yeah? Okay, cool. So you're going to take that, and again, we're going to start up here, and you're going to kind of find that spot where if I were to go where my hip bone is, you can kind of see the shadow on my pants. You can hear my hip bone. It's not really your hip bone, but that's what a lot of people will call it, right? It's actually just the front of your pelvis bone, the bone that goes up and around for your pelvis, okay? So you're gonna kind of follow that guy over and then right down from there, all in this meaty area and down is gonna be where some of those juicy spots live for getting that rolled down. Now you gotta be careful, again, there's that bone. And then if we go all the way down to about right here, there's another spot that feels a little bit harder, right? You can hear it. That's my other quote unquote hip bone people think of. It's part of my femur. So make sure you're not rolling on these 2 spots. They can get real tender. There's nerves that go there, bursa sacs, things you don't want to inflame. But we're gonna kind of go right in between, right along here. You might even find you like kind of right in along these areas, and that's fine too. But we're gonna go here with me for now, okay? So you're gonna kind of get right into that spot. I do a little bit of a bend and a lean. The reason I do a bit of a bend, one, I'm more athletically braced, but then I can move a little because I can stand up or down to find that like sweet spot. You might have hit most of them by doing the foam roller, because again, this is just another option. So if you were doing it with me, you might not have much of one left, but I have, oh, right there. So mine's kind of right between those 2 bony spots for me. That's more in that TFL region I talked to you about, that tensions RIT band. And then what I'm going to do is pick up that leg. I'm leaning into the wall. I'm picking up my leg and going back and forth, knee in and out and forward, backward. And man, can I feel that intensify that spiciness. So I'm not rolling up and down, right? I'm not dancing with it. I'm pinning that sweet spot against, just like I would if I were your practitioner and I was pinning that area and making you move accordingly. And then I'm going through a range of motion that feels like it's affecting that muscle fiber. So I'm activating it while it's pinned to help it loosen up in an area that maybe is otherwise gunked up for you. Okay, so find that spot. Do 1 or 2 more spots while I got you, because I'm also using this as time to make you guys do your mobility. You might find a higher spot, and you might find that going a different direction, ooh, that one for me is spicy, depending on what muscle or what sore spot you found. You might even like to go more towards the front of the hip or down on the quad, right? That might be your spot, and maybe you're just going side to side. Okay, everybody's a little bit different. So find those spots. Switch sides for me. I won't make you all look at my butt, so I'll just watch and see what Maria and them are doing. Let's see. She looks like she found a spot. Neil's against the corner. Good, he's got a spot there. Corners and wall doorways. Yeah, Maria's face says it all. Corners and doorways can be awesome if your doorway has a molding that you can wedge that ball in. I'll show you that while those guys are still working on it. Right, I'm gonna use a closet door. But if you have
like a good molding ledge like this. And again, like you don't want to scuff it up. So make sure you got like a rubber ball. If you had a baseball, it might scuff, but using like a rubber ball and wedging it in that kind of area, the ball doesn't roll very much and it can give you a good chance to really pin. And then you have room here, but also behind that you can add an angle because it's on an edge. So you could be moving, you know, your legs in and out, back and forth, instead of being pinned against a wall where all you can really do is forward and backward. Here, you're getting a view of my closet. Okay. So that can be a good spot too, especially when we talk about going for like the pecs and the neck, finding those little kind of molding areas on a doorway could be really awesome for you, especially if you don't have like a big open space of wall. Maybe just use a doorway and it might hold it on there just fine. Okay, guys, we're going to move to the upper body before I let you go. We're going to do pecs, okay? So for your pecs, kind of have this whole area. Again, watch for bony stuff, so don't go right over where your clavicle hits your sternum, okay? You don't want to go right over that guy. You can hear that, right? We also don't want to go right on top of that bony prominence area in our shoulders. A couple different landmarks there, but you can feel them. If it feels bony, don't roll over it. If it sends zingers, don't stay on it, okay? But put it right kind of in that belly of the muscle, right? And you're gonna really kind of lean in. I'm trying to give you guys an angle, hopefully you can see. And then options when you find that spot. Again, I bend my legs a little so I have like some work room to find that area. And then I'll go and kind of do like little mini, what are these called? Snow angels. Some people that are more flexible might get all the way up overhead. That's fine. I'll also do where I kind of reach back. I'll turn my thumb down and reach back, right? I'll do some where I roll in against the wall and I'm almost pushing into the wall, stretching it. And then I find that spot and I'll do some slides. Sometimes I'll bend in and out because that plays around with which part of that tissue I get. And then I'll move to a different spot and I'll go in pretty far, all the way into kind of the border of the sternum, because there's muscles there too that go all across here and then up this way. So I'll hit all in those areas, especially like I said, if I had like a doorway, stuck that in there, you can have that whole area where that door ends to do this with your arm because you're not hitting a wall. Okay, so those are options, or a corner like what Neil's on, and you can move your arms however you want. And yeah, it might look funny. It might look like you're sitting there having a conversation with the wall when you get back to the gym, but everyone will know what it's for, and you'll feel like really nice, loose, and less tenderness, hopefully, after doing it in your pec tissue that can get real tight. And again, I always think that it's a great idea after you loosen it up or do a stretch to go activate it. Get the blood pumping through that nice supple tissue that's trying to get it to use it for the length that you just tried to get into it, right? You just tried to give it some length. You tried to loosen up some of the scar tissue, quote unquote, because that's what people try to refer to it as. So we're going to basic understanding, okay? Or adhesions, people use that too. Whatever you're breaking up in there, I don't care, but go use it afterwards because that's gonna really give it the best bang for its buck, right? You don't have to go max out, but go do some reps of something, push-ups, or just some basic like active movement with the arms, pull-ups, whatever, but use that area, okay? Just to get blood flowing, get muscles pumping. Last spot that's really nice that I like to give people, it's right.
On that one question.
Yeah.
On that part, what if I had just worked out and I did a bunch of push-ups as my warm-up and a little extra stuff? Should I redo this if I already worked out, or like redo some stuff?
You don't have to. The big thing that comes down to it, right, when it comes to doing it after a workout versus before a workout, I really like doing a bit of a warm-up, then feel where certain things are tight, go work on it, right? If I've already finished my workout and it's afterwards, the beautiful part about things like this is it might not be because it feels really sore, but what you might be doing by moving through that muscle, making it move while pinned, is making sure that any of those, that inflammation, or those kind of secondary metabolites, which are things that are there to help heal tissue and all that type of stuff that can create soreness, get flushed through, right? So that they don't sit and pool up in that area. So that's one of the reasons we also say when people are done working out, don't just go sit, right? Keep moving, right? So sometimes what I'll tell people to do is work out, and then maybe like an hour later, or after you've had to drive home from the gym or whatever, then maybe go ahead and do another little bit of it. It's just that you're not doing it because it's like really sore and you're getting it warm for the day. Now you're doing it with a little bit different purpose, but it's going to keep some of that same tissue extensibility and everything else. You want to make sure you're not digging on it super hard after you just did a big workout, because you don't want to be breaking down tissue more that you just broke down. So from that aspect, you're not going to have done a big chest press workout and then all of a sudden you go dig on your pec when it's trying to repair and it's already all puffy and inflamed. But doing a bit of like some mobility or just working through it like an hour later or anything like that is just going to help maybe get a little bit of that flush of that extra stuff there. That's why they'll have like compression boots that you'll see, or shoulder compression things that'll just flush some of those soreness factors basically up and out of those muscles. And so it's not a bad idea. It's just why you're doing it is what changes. Does that make sense and answer your question? Great. The other thing I will recommend when I'm doing a shoulder workout, if I warmed up, did my whatever mobility was, and then I'm in the middle of doing some sets of like shoulder presses and I feel a twinge in my shoulder because I have a history of injury there, I'll go in between my sets while I'm lifting and I'll do on my rest, not something to sit and dig at it, but I'll do a little bit of a pin and kind of stretch in that area to see if something's really not sliding or gliding or is getting a little locked up in there in the tissue, then go back and do another set. Right? So I'll sometimes use it, even though I've already done certain workouts, if I'm still feeling something catch or twinge or whatever, I'll use some of these little mobility tools just to try and get in and really pinpoint where I want it to stretch and warm up, because maybe it hasn't really hit it yet in whatever other moves I've done for the day. So I'll do that sometimes too, just to further on your idea of when is a good time to do these. Sometimes that can be really helpful. Cool. Great question. Last one that we'll do for the day. So it's actually works out really well with where my shoulder seam is. Okay, but going kind of right from like the base of the neck towards the top of my scapula right here in along this area can get really tender for people. There's muscles like our traps that hold our neck up. We have muscles that help elevate our scapulas that cross over that. So they can get pretty gummed up. So what I'll tell people to do a lot, again, not going over the middle of their spine and not going on the side of their neck, but going kind of right to the back. I bend a little bit and I angle myself again so that I can move, so that I can, not because I'm going to keep moving, but I want to find a spot and I just kind of pin that spot when I feel it. And then I can move my arm and I can move my head in kind of different directions, turning and tipping. And I can move my arm up and down, I can move it across, and I'll feel kind of a pin and stretch on those different muscle groups. Traps, rhomboids are kind of down a little lower through here that we can get by kind of taking our arm, whoo, and then head down, right? And just playing around with those positions and different angles. It can be really awesome and a great way to pin. And you're not moving around the ball around, you're moving around the ball. So the ball stays pinned and you move stuff. Right? Again, if you're sending zingers, then maybe get off that spot, but moving it around, and I'll move it across, I'll move it down, and then I'll tip my head in a different direction, and then I change it around a little bit, and I'll move it around. Again, if something hurts, don't do it. If it's a good kind of pain, like a massage style pain, great. And I'll switch to the other side. So let's finish up on the other side here, guys. I don't spend more than anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how big the muscle group is and what I have to hit on any one spot. One, we don't got that much time in general in life. But two, there comes a point when if you're gonna do more damage to the tissue, or if you're gonna aggravate it or bruise it, if it's really doing you a whole lot of good. So I won't spend more than like maybe 30 seconds on a certain spot. If it's really spicy, I might spend longer, but I don't do the exact same move the whole time. I'll move a different direction in that muscle fiber. And again, then it adds up to maybe 2 minutes. If it's my glutes or my low back and full back, I spent like 5 minutes during those first foam roller sessions with you guys. And that was with talking. So I play around with it. Go ahead and find one more spicy spot on that other side, guys. Again, going anywhere along kind of that neck area, down between the shoulder blades, just not on your spine, and move it around. Oh, yeah. You can reach and punch. You can reach up. You can rotate the shoulder a little. Ooh, right there for me. Yeah. Oh, perfect. All right. Let's go ahead and bring it in, the two of you that are on. If anyone else is watching, you can always spend more time doing these things for longer, or any one piece a little more. Those are just my favorite go-tos. The only ones I tend to really recommend to people at all, most of the stuff I recommend to everybody is going to be, most stuff I recommend to other people is going to be mobility-based movement and activation stuff. So you should feel really good if you're about to go into hopefully our 5:30 workout. Steve just got on, so hopefully he's getting ready for it. But is there any questions to the mobility peeps before I end the recording so that they can be answered? Feel pretty good about everything? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to end that recording. Da, da, da. Stop that one.